Well, it has some very interesting features, and it's the next step towards SU10. Okay, so what do we have here? We have this symmetry. We have an SU4 color. So we are going basically from an SU3 color to an SU4 color. Okay? And then we have this SU2. Again, we have left-right symmetrics. We have an SU2 left and an SU2 right. So what does this mean for the fermions? Now the fermions, they can all fit into two representations. One left representation and one right representation. And so you have here the kind of three colors of quartz. So I didn't write here a special color index, but you may put here red, green, blue or so. So we have three quartz because they come in three colors. But then in addition to this, we're going to write here the lepton doublet. So we have here the quark doublets, the left quark doublets. So kind of SU2 is acting in this direction here. Here we have the kind of the three colors of the quark doublets here. So and SU3 color is basically rotating these here into each other. But we're adding leptons as the fourth color, in some sense. So if this is a good symmetry at some high scales, you can rotate quarks into leptons, and nothing is changing. This may kind of be the case at some very high energies. So this is the left doublet, and the right, this is the left quartet. So we have quartets here. Four-dimensional representation of SU2 colors, and they are, in addition, doublets of the SU2 left. So now the right representation, it is also a quartet under the SU4 color, and it's now charged under the SU2 right. So it's a doublet under the SU2 right. So we are adding the right doublets here for the quartz, the three colors, and the right lepton doublet. And again, this right lepton doublet has a right chiral neutrino. So again, this theory is predicting here a right chiral neutrino, and you see, as you can already see, this is predicting here that we have some contributions from a type 1 Caesomexes. These guys are present. Okay, what else do we have? Now we have to look at the Higgs sector in the Higgs fields. So we have, again, the possibility that we can use a Y doublet for electroweak symmetry breaking. So that's the same as we just had in the left-right one. We have two Higgs doublets combined into this Y doublet. But there's also another possibility. So we can also embed some of the Higgs fields into such a big capital Phi prime, which is not the singlet here under the SU4 color, but it is a 15-plet. And the 15-plet is a 4x4 traceless matrix, so it has 50 degrees of freedom, and one can also embed the standard model Higgs into this representation. Okay, and this is for electroweak symmetry breaking, and I will come soon to the role that can be played by this thing. So you can again do the same thing. You can have here triplets under the SU2 left, SU2 right. It will be in addition tablet from the SU4 color, that's not so important here. Or you can break it by doublets, as it is the case here. And the breaking pattern will be, again, by the Markov expectation values of the delta R or chi are here, from the Partisalan model down to the standard model, and then by this phi or phi prime, you break electroweak symmetry down to the standard model. And for neutrino masses, you have the same discussion as we just had in the minimal left right model. You can either have type 1 plus 2 CISO, or you can have a pure type 1 CISO. Basically, nothing has changed. But something is not changing because you get predictions because of the fact that you're now unifying quartz and leptons. So this must give you some constraints, right? So you cannot do this without getting constrained by your theory. Okay, so what's going on is the following. You remember that also in the standard model, we are writing down the Kawa couplings by coupling the Fermi representations to our electroweak Higgs fields. So here we have either the capital Phi or the capital Phi prime, which contain our electroweak symmetry breaking Higgs fields. So we have two possibilities. And again, like the standard model, you can couple to the Phi or to the Phi tilde, which is constructed like this here. And so this is the tau 2, the Pauli matrix 2, which is here practically an epsilon tensor, and the multiplication by I is JDA. So it's an I squared, just a minus. Okay, so you have here these two ways to construct Yukawa couplings. And this here will give you cover couplings for the neutrinos and for the up-type quarks at the same time. This here will give you cover couplings for the charged leptons and the down-type quarks at the same time. So you only have one cover matrix here, and this one cover matrix will can work for two different types of particles. And in your theory, when you have no phi prime, only this phi, it would really imply that the these here are equal. So the neutrino, the cover matrix equals the down cover matrix. The up cover matrix, which is no problem. But also the charged lepton cover matrix should be equal at the Guth scale to the down cover matrix. And this I will come to is something which is not realistic, cannot work. Here we have the other prediction, and this is very different when you have this prime field here. This is the one in brackets here. When you have this 15-plat version, which contains the standard model where the electron symmetry cases, then you get here a relation with a factor -3, and also here, charged lepton cover matrix equals -3 times the down quark cover matrix. So you get a group theoretical factor in these relations between charged lepton and down-type quarks, which is important. So okay, where is this factor 3 coming from? Just said it's a group theoretical factor. It's kind of a Clebsch-Gordon factor, but it's very easy to understand in this case where it's coming from, because I've already told you that this is a 50-dimensional representation. It is, as such, it is a traceless matrix. And if this should get a BEF to break the standard model gauge group down to SU3 color times 1 electromagnetic, it furthermore must not break the SU3 color. So you must have, for this BEF, you must have the 3 equal entries here. And then in order that it's traceless, you must have a factor of -3 here. So that's the only direction in which this 15-plat can get a BEF in order to break down to the standard model. So it's just because this matrix has to be traceless, we get this factor of -3 here. It's because of this of the 3 colors of the quarks that have to be compensated. So it's just basically a quark color factor which comes when you use this 15-plat to embed a standard model X particle into a Partisalam representation. So this is of course very important because, as I already said, so this cover matrix as being equal is not realistic. And the possible solution after this is that you have either the situation that you have a linear combination, so you have both of these fields. So you have the normal Bieder-plat and the Bieder-plat in the 15-plat of the SU4 color. And then you can do a linear combination. Or you can have the situation that certain elements can get the masses from the phi prime fields, and others can get the masses from the phi fields. And then you can indeed get something which is realistic. And this is, we'll come to this a bit more later when we discuss the SU5 quantum theories. But this is to be kept in mind. When you have certain fields, you can get predictions between these elements up to some group theoretical Clebsch-Gordon factors. And especially this factor of 3 was also suggested a long time ago that it can work very well for the second generation, for the Muir mass over the strange quark mass. Because if you plug in such a factor of 3, then that's actually at the Guth scale. Then you include renormalization group running. Then this for a long time was quite close to what was observed at low energies. Whereas the other relation, that you say for the third family, for the bottom and the tau mass, you can use this here for with the kind of unprimed, with the standard Bieder-plat field, and then you get that the tau, so the third generation here, would be equal to the bottom mass at the Guth scale. And again, this is something which could in principle work, or is at least close to the observations. So in this way, you can get predictions for the ratios of quark and lepton masses out of such Partisalam or quark lepton unified models. So this continues also in the virtual SU10. Okay. So now the final step is to go to SU10 Guts, where you now have the situation that you can indeed, which is actually very attractive feature of SO10 guts, that you can now take these two left and right Fermi representation of Partisalan and combine them to one single representation per family in SO10. This is a 16 representation, which is a spinor representation of SO10. And now there you have all the 15 degrees of freedom of the standard model plus one right-handed neutrino. So it combines all the standard model degrees of freedom and predicts the right-handed neutrino, which is good because it can be small neutrino masses while the Caesar magnet. So it's easiest to understand this here in the Partisalan language. So we have all the fields which were formerly in here, you can combine with the 16-bit SO10. So the breaking pattern, so there are now many possibilities actually. So to go through SO10 is, from technical point of view, not quite easy, and there's many possibilities. But one of them is to break SO10 by showing the 10-dimensional Higgs representation, 54-dimensional Higgs representation down to the Partisalan model. And then you can basically continue with the breaking that we've just discussed. So in the SO10 language, this would be using a 126-dimensional SO10 representation or a 16-dimensional SO10 representation. And then here you have more possibilities, as I'm not going to discuss, in order to embed the standard model Higgs field into SO10 representations. So you can see already here, a drawback of SO10 is that when it gets to the SO10 Higgs sector, you have to include very large representations, 126, 110. These are many, many fields that come extra at the gut scale. And this leads to a few technical problems also because for instance, we have a unified gauge coupling at the gut scale. And if you continue running, then these many fields tend to drive your gauge coupling very fast to larger values, just above the gut scale, which is something you really have to keep in mind. That's a drawback of SO10. You have to include these large representations, or very often at least. Okay. Want to continue with this discussion. So how do we get Fermi masses? So these are the possibilities to embed the standard model field now into SO10 representations. And the simplest one, which is actually not such a large representation, it's just a 10-dimensional Higgs representation. Going back again to SO10 language, it contains the standard Weidel. So we recover what we just discussed with these predictions that these two fields have to be equal. But now since you have only one Yukawa coupling for all the fields, you even get that the 4 Yukawa matrices have to be equal. If there's only a 10 flat, you would get all 4 Yukawa matrices equal. You would have, also for the third family, this may be still a viable possibility in supersymmetric series. You would have something like complete third family Yukawa unification for Yukawa matrices. And also for the masses, so the B, tau, and top, well, this is not the masses, it's the Yukawa coupling at high energies complete. And in addition, you have a symmetric matrix, which also comes out of the structure, then you have 216 flats here. Next possibility is to use a 120 representation of SO10. So this contains now the standard Weidel, but also this Weidel prime, which is the 15-bit here. So now you have to be a bit careful, depending on how you contract indices, you can get both possibilities. One is with Yukawa unification, and this was the factor -3 here. And another difference is that this Yukawa matrix is supposed to be anti-symmetric in this case, on the 120. Now, next thing is the 126, that's the third possibility. If you decompose this into Partisalan representations, what you get is a delta L, so which you know, and delta right. So these are these triplets under the SU2 left, SU2 right. And we have the Weidel in the 50 representation. Okay, so this is the one which leads to this factor -3 here. The Yukawa matrices are symmetric from this. And you get, with this field here, you get masses for the right-handed neutrinos, as we discussed in the minimal left-right model, of the order of the grain unification scale. So in SO10, we now really have a grain unified theory. I forgot to stress this point. So we now have a simple group, SO10, where we have embedded the standard model gauge group. So we have really, at this scale now, only one gauge coupling. And we have a grain unification scale for the lowest gauge coupling speed. So the right-handed masses would get, right-handed fields would get masses of the order of the grain unification scale. The type 2 Caesar contribution we would get from this delta L here, which is the electric scale squared over Legat scale. So again, we have a season contribution. So we have two season contributions here, type 1 plus 2. So that's the option again with the delta. But we also have the pure type 1 season mechanism solution. Because again, like if you remember for the minimal left right model, we were getting an effective operator for masses for the right hand in between us. And you can do the same here when you have some 16-bit x's here, or a pair of 16-bit x's, 16 bar. If you break basically in this first step, the SO10 part is along by the left of these 16 bits. Now you get, it's like this chi left and chi right that we introduce in the minimal left-right model. So now here you have an effective operator. This can give also masses for the right and neutrinos. So you already have squared over lambda. This is Planck scale. You can get something 2 or 3 orders below the Legat scale, which works perfectly for the season mechanism actually. And this would be a pure type 1 season mechanism. Okay. So again, both options. That's very typical for left-right symmetric extensions up to SO10 gas. So generic. Here, left-right symmetric extension, either purely this or this combined with this.
So this, the previous page is Y and Y new is a correlation with this YU and YP. Is that also valid for the second and third generations?
Sorry?
Y new related to YE, right?
Yeah, YU related to YE. So if this here is the only contribution, yeah, then this here would hold for the matrices, for the complete matrices. So we have this also for all the mass eigenvalues.
All the mass, even half mass?
And this cannot be true. Yeah. So the idea in these theories, and also for the Partisalam theory, so I'm going to come soon a bit more to this problem, is the following: that you say you have not only one of them, you have two contributions. Yeah, you have the bidoplet and this normal bidoplet, and you have the bidoplet prime. But you arrange in your theory that this normal bidoplet, for example, couples to the third generation, and the bidoplet prime couples to the second generation. And you have to invoke extra symmetries for doing that. But if you do this in your model, then you can get good predictions. So we have to write this ratio 1. Well, okay, so it's not a perfect prediction, but it's not this close to the experiments. And I'm going to come a bit more to this very soon. But you basically have to split this. You need two of these fields which contain the standard model Higgs field in order to get good predictions. And this is also the suggestion by George and Jansson a long time ago, that you can have beta unification with the self-family, but for the second you need this factor of 3. And this factor of 3 gives you an extra suppression of string. Okay. Good. I think that's a very interesting discussion, and I promise I'll come back to this very soon. So the left-right symmetry was one possibility, very attractive, because you predict the right common neutrinos. The more minimal grand unified theory, which was proposed first, is a different one. It's embedding the standard model gauge group into an SU5 gauge group. And when you want to do this, so this is also a grand unified theory, so you have only one simple group, only one gauge coupling, so a real grand unified theory. And you can embed the standard model fields into SU5 in the following way. So there's also another option called flipped SU5, but I will stick here to the most basic SU5 theory. So we have the right, so there's the 3 colors of right color down fields here, and you have the quark, you have the lepton doublet embedded here in this way. Okay? This is a 5-bar representation of SU5. It's the complex conjugate of the fundamental representation. We also have a 10-dimensional representation of traceless antisymmetric matrix, where you have now embedded your quark doublets. So here is one quark doublet, the second color, the third color, and you have your right chiral electron, and you have your right chiral up quarks. They are embedded in this 10-dimensional representation. Okay. Also, all the 15 degrees of the Snell model but you have not yet included any white carbon neutrino or any ingredient to generate neutrino masses. So in SU5, you have to do this extra. But you have the freedom to realize any Caesar mechanism that you like, or any combination of both. So you can just add the right-handed neutrinos as singlets under SU5, that will give you a type 1 Caesar. You can add the delta Ls. Also, these are 15 plets under SU5. Then you can realize a type 2 Caesar. Or you can also realize a type 3 Caesar if you have this sigma right field here, 24 plet, which contains the singlet and this understanding model. But it also contains such a triplet here, a type 3 Caesar. So you have all the options here, and also the combined type 1 and type 3 option for the SU5 gradient equality. So it is somewhat simpler than SU10, as you're going to see. It has smaller representations. It also has some nice options for the quartet and carbon coupling ratios. That's why I wanted to discuss this here with SU5. But you'll have to it's not automatically predicting small neutrino masses by Caesar mechanism. You have to do this extra, but you can do it without that. Okay, now coming to the Higgs fields, you can embed the standard model Higgs fields into 5 bar representations. So again, you will have two Higgs fields, like in the minimal supersymmetric standard model. Some Higgs which couples to the up-type quarks, some to the down-type quarks. So, and these are 5 bars which contain I call them phi u and phi d, which are basically the two Higgs fields of the minimal supersymmetric standard model. Or in a 45 bar. And both of them can break down the standard model gauge group to SU3 color times U1 times U1 electromagnetics. Okay, and again you need another Higgs field which breaks the SU5 gut to the standard model gauge group. And this you can do with 24 dimensional representation is the smallest one, which can break SU5 down to the standard model. So the breaking pattern is this here now. You're breaking with the 24 to the standard model, and then either with H5 bar, or H45 bar down to the standard model. To the SU3 color times U1 electromagnetics. Okay, now coming to the fermion masses, then at the first site you recover something very similar that we already discussed with the SU10 guts, or the left-right symmetric extension. This is now here. These here are the Yukawa matrices, which give you masses in the end to the charge lepton and the down-type quarks. Right, and what is separated here, this is a Yukawa matrix which gives masses to the up-type quarks, up, charm, and top. So we have here some separation built in between these and this, which is already something which is different to SU10 guts, where they were all equal. But here in SU5, this is, at least my personal taste, quite attractive, because as we've seen in the first lecture, the hierarchy in the up sector is much stronger than in the down sector and charged leptons. So if you just look at the masses, then you see charged lepton masses, down-type masses, they may differ by some factor, but if you look at the up-type mass matrix, it's a much more stretched hierarchy, which is somewhat difficult to explain in any case when you go to an SO10 gut. But here, so you have the separation, and now here, depending on whether you use the 5 plets or the 45 plets, you get either the fact that the YE is equal to the YD transpose, or if you have only elements which use these fields, and then this accounts only for the certain elements of the mass matrix, of course. Or you get this factor of -3 here if you have 45 plets. And in addition, you may write down here the carbon couplings for the neutrinos and mass terms for the neutrinos. So I've chosen here a type 1 Caesar mechanism, but you can also choose type 2 or type 3, and these options which are present. Okay. Now, what is the data kind of telling us? So when you want to compare, when you want to calculate which are the ratios of the masses, or I should better write here the ratios of the Yukawa couplings. When I write masses here, it's just Yukawa coupling times electric effect. Then you have to do the randomization to running, and starting from the experimental values at low energies, you have to run it up to the gut scale, and this changes the quark lepton mass is by a factor of 3 roughly. So there's a big difference. You really have to do this renormalization program. Then, if you do this safely, you get estimates at the gut scale, which are tau to bottom mass at the gut scale is about 1.3, and mu to strange quark mass is about 4.4 at the gut scale. With some kind of errors, which have become much smaller recently, since also the strange quark mass is much better known, and so on. In the supersymmetric theory, there is some extra effect, which is that at low scale, or at the scale of the superparticle masses, you get some finite one-loop contributions, some so-called supersymmetric one-loop threshold corrections, which can also modify these ratios. So these values doesn't have to be realized exactly, but there's also some possible modification, which, however, would require, in order to calculate this, you would need to know the supersymmetric parameters and the spectrum of the superparticle. But nonetheless, this is something which, I mean, if you come close to this region, then you are in the right ballpark for having possibly viable gut-scale ratios of the Yukawa matrices. Okay, now there's the possibility that we have in SO10, and this we also have in Partisalan models and so on. This is that we have here, we have a 5-bar representation, or we have the standard Heidelberg in the Partisalan case, and then you can get a ratio, and if this here is basically holding from the third family, so we have here this coupling, there are some symmetries which allow this basically from the third family. Then we get tau mass from the bottom mass at the gut scale is equal to 1. And this is the famous bottom tau unification, which you can require, and you can work for certain supersymmetric random mechanisms, so it gives you some constraints also on the SUSY model that you can have. There's an interesting alternative to it, which is that you go also here to effective operators. And this is mentioned by the fact that unless you are in a SUSY theory with very large time speakers, and that's the ratio of the steps, which has an implication also on the size of the Yukawa couplings. Otherwise, for example, for the masses, you know that the top mass is much heavier than the bottom and the tau mass, and also the Yukawa coupling, more generically, the top Yukawa coupling is much bigger than the ones of the tau and the bottom. So if you want to explain why these Yukawa couplings are not order 1 but smaller, you can do so by going to an effective operator. This is an example of an effective operator that you can write down. It is suppressed here by the gut scale over the Kaplan scale. And if this here is something close to the Planck scale, like a lot of magnitude below the Planck scale, so you get here a suppression of order 10 to the minus 2, or if 2 orders below the Planck scale, it's 10 to the minus 1 suppression. And this could explain why the bottom and tau Yukawa couplings are smaller than the ones for the top. Okay? And interestingly, such operators, if you just include this H24 field, which we have anyway in the theory, because this is the field which is breaking from SU5 down to the standard model gauge group, and then you calculate this group theoretical factor, and then you get a factor of 3/2 between the tau and the bottom. And this factor of 3/2 is also very easy to understand, because also this 24 here is a traceless matrix of SU5. And the first 3 entries here are again SU3 color. So this means if this here should get a left, then it should not break the SU3 color in this here. And in this direction here, we have the SU2 left acting. So it should not break SU3 color, not break SU2 left. Then you can only get a left in this direction. Okay, and now if you plug this left in here, then it's easy to imagine that you get a factor 3/2 for electrons over the quarks. So it's just this factor 3/2, which is giving a new prediction here for the mass ratios in SO5 theories. And something like this is not straightforward to get in SO10 gas. So that's also kind of an attractive alternative. And it gives very different predictions for the SUSY spectrum, right? So if you remember, going to the data, it's 1.3. So I might say it's a bit closer to the 3/2 than to the 1. But it doesn't matter. So it's just the corrections have to go in the opposite direction. Right? So you would be able, if you see supersymmetry, to say which of these kind of way to construct gaps works better. The one with p-tau unification or with the factor 3/2. So at the moment we don't know. For the second family, there is this famous Georgi-Yalskov factor, which comes here from the 45x with again a renormalizable operator. But even more for the second family, we would like to explain why the Yokohama coupling is smaller,